Hello and welcome back to another episode of Teach Me in 10. Today we're joined by Dr. Mahmoud Ghannoum, who is a professor at Case Western Reserve University and world-renowned scientist who pioneered the study of the fungal community in the human body, even coining the term the microbiome. He will explore the vital role this fungal community plays in our gut health and disease. Hi, Dr. Ghannoum. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we've all heard so much about gut bacteria and the microbiome lately, but an important piece of the puzzle is the microbiome. For those of us who are new to the term, what exactly is the microbiome, and how does it differ from the bacterial community in the gut?
First of all, thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be with you. You know, the difference between bacteria and fungi, they are all microbes, but the bacteria is prokaryote, whereas fungi is eukaryote, more like us, like a human cells. Now, what is the microbiome? Microbiome represents the fungi, the fungus that are present in our body and on our body, like on the skin, in our gut, in our hair, all over the place. And really, the difference between them is that they are, first of all, fungi is much bigger in size than the bacteria. They have a nucleus like we have as eukaryotes, as humans, whereas fungi, whereas bacteria does not have it. And also, what's so important about this is that the two communities interact together. Sort of they play together because they are present, for example, in our gut, you have both bacteria and you have fungi or fungus. And these play together to affect our health and overall, really, our, for example, gut-brain axis, how the skin live on there. And what's really very important is that if you interfere with one community, you are going to affect the other. I give you the best example. When you take an antibiotic, what you do, you kill these microbes, which is bacteria. And because bacteria keeps candida or fungus under control, they will start to overgrow. And that's why it's very important to look at both communities, the bacteria and the fungus.
It sounds like in a perfect world, these communities live together in harmony in the gut. But what happens when the balance shifts and the fungi starts to overgrow?
This is a very good question. Yes. When you have fungi and bacteria in our gut, for example, there are good beneficial bacteria like lactobacillus, which keeps candida under control. So it is present, like 70% of us may have candida in our gut. We did studies and we showed that. But when it is at low level, in fact, it could be beneficial. It can break down products, the food, for example, and provide nutrition to the bacteria. So they help each other. What happens if you take an antibiotic, for example, you kill the beneficial microbes, and this will allow fungi to start to grow or overgrow. And if that happens, then we'll start to have issues in our gut, like bloating, flatulence, abdominal pain. All of these issues start to be affected when you have an overgrowth of fungus because we killed the good bacteria.
I've also heard that fungi can form biofilms. Could you explain what they are and how they impact our gut?
This is really a very good question. And many years ago, I was funded by the National Institute of Health to study and develop fungal biofilms. Biofilms, the simplest example is the plaque in our teeth. Every morning we brush our teeth to try to get rid of this plaque. And that is biofilm. Okay. The same could happen in our gut, where you find, for example, bacteria such as E. coli or Escherichia coli, as well as Serratia marcescens. They come and play with candida, which is in this case Candida tropicalis. In other words, they start to interact, and what they do, they start to form biofilms. If you look at this biofilm, the thickness of it, if you take bacteria alone and fungus alone, is very, very thin. However, if they come together, it becomes robust and becomes thick. So what does that mean to us as human beings? This biofilm form in our gut lining, and because the interaction between bacteria and fungi, what happens, fungus start to form hyphae or filaments. They become, it's not like baker's yeast, they become longer, okay? And then they start to poke holes or make holes in our gut lining, which leads to leaky gut. So that's why you really need to get rid of this biofilm formed by pathogenic bacteria and fungi.
On the flip side, would you say there's such a thing as good or beneficial fungi in the gut?
This is really very good question. And really now this point is becoming more and more popular. People know about Saccharomyces cerevisiae, or which is baker's yeast. You remember we use it for bread, we use it for making beer, but also it's present in our gut. Usually we did thousands of people, we analyzed their microbiome, and we found that there is an elevation of Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is a beneficial yeast, okay? So it's good to have it. And there are studies to show that really Saccharomyces can help in travel diarrhea. People who develop diarrhea, you give them Saccharomyces, who takes antibiotics or they develop diarrhea, then if you give them Saccharomyces, this will really takes care of it, okay? Now, the good news, why I'm telling you your question is very important, is because people now start looking at, are there any other good fungus that we find in our gut? And you know what? This was very interesting because many years ago, I was working with oral mycobiome. We wanted to define the oral community in HIV-infected patients, AIDS patients. And what we found that people who have this yeast called Pichia, or some people call it Pichia, Pichia, Pichia or Pichia, whatever you like. And of course, what happened, this one, if it is elevated, Candida is down. And we found in patients that if they have a lot of Candida, Pichia is down, okay? So we then realized that this is a beneficial yeast that we really need to encourage and use. And at the moment, we are starting, and others, to develop or select certain Pichia strains as a probiotic. So now we are not going to depend only in bacterial probiotic like Lactobacillus, Bifidobacterium. We have now Saccharomyces, we have Pichia, and also there are other fungi that are beneficial, that are under development now. So yes, there are a number of good fungus that hopefully very soon we will see them in the market to help people with their health.
So how can we encourage the growth of these beneficial fungi? Are there any specific lifestyle or dietary changes you would recommend?
Certainly. There are really approaches which have been designed to try to encourage the growth of beneficial fungi as well as actually bacteria. This includes, we need to cut sugar. Sugar is not very helpful because fungi love sugar. Also, we need to eat whole food. You need to have a lot of plant proteins. You need to have fish. Chicken is great, as well as antioxidants or the greeneries. We need to have fibers as well. Fibers like lentils, for example, beans, are really very, very helpful to encourage the growth of these organisms. I would also go after apple cider vinegar, which have been shown to keep the bad fungus down, as well as the garlic, where we published a couple of papers on that. We showed that garlic is able to really inhibit the growth of fungi. So all of these, if you put it together, have been summarized in a book which we published called Total Gut Balance, and really tells you how you control the microbiome you have using dietary approaches. But one other thing which you alluded to, it's very important to exercise. And when I say exercise, it means moderate exercise. You don't have to kill yourself and be like an athlete, 3 times a week, half an hour a day, it will be fantastic. Also, in addition, one last point, especially in this day and age, stress. We need to manage our stress. Stress management is critical. In fact, we had a person, she eats fantastic food. She sent us her fecal sample or stool sample to analyze, and what we found that she eats fantastic food, yet she has dysbiosis or imbalance of the microbiome. And you know why? Because of stress. That's why I tell people, listen, you have to have walks, do yoga. Another thing which I love, which is you are, I really love it because I have a dog. The dog, you need to get a dog and go for a walk with your dog and enjoy it, especially after a long day and with all these Zoom meetings, with all the meeting and dealing with people. This will really relaxes you a lot.
Definitely. Well, getting a dog is very high on my priority list. Thank you so much, Dr. Ghannoum. It's been really eye-opening and a real pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise, thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you so much to Dr. Ghannoum for joining us. To dive deeper into the world of the microbiome, check out the links in the description. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest releases. See you next time.